Going live here, January 15th, 1:35 a.m. This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com with my daily news update. There was 6 new WWE developmental signings today, and Elias was also re-signed. WWE announced on their backstage show. The only 2 names I recognize of the 6 WWE developmental signings were Jake Atlas, who I interviewed just a couple of days ago at the PCW Ultra show in LA. Couldn't say it on camera then, but check out that interview with him. He signed. And the other one, I think it's Mercedes Martinez, who's a female wrestler that's been in the business a long time. Triple H told Metro today that he is open to more Tyson Fury appearances. He didn't issue any apology about his comments regarding Paige possibly having children out there she doesn't know about. He made a joke about her promiscuity. She's known to have been with numerous wrestlers and musicians, and there's even been videos come out, one of her being with multiple wrestlers at a time. And it's funny, I think one of the wrestlers in one of those videos with Paige is Xavier Woods, and he was on WWE Backstage tonight, I think, as one of the hosts. Did anyone watching this happen to know if Xavier Woods made any backstage comments about Triple H and Paige? Because, I mean, he might have something interesting to say about it that would get a lot of views for sure. But I'm not sure if they cover the real down and dirty gossip on that backstage show. Orlo Myers says Tyson Fury is a joke in WWE. Well, his first appearance was before they edited it up. It was really bad. There was lots of missed punches by large amounts and the wrestlers bumping anyways. I'm not blaming him for that. They just should have avoided having him punch. I didn't see the match with Braun Strowman where he defeated Braun Strowman. It didn't have great reviews. I heard it was actually a bad match, but I haven't seen it. On AEW Dark this week, they showed how they honored the Memphis Legends at the Memphis Dynamite taping last week. I noticed Lanny Poffo was there representing the Poffo family, and the announcer said that at 65 years old, he's still wrestling. And I remember when he attacked me backstage, if you watch the video, I think he was 55 then, and he's saying he's 55 years old and he's too old for this shit. So I thought it was funny that they announced him as 65 years old and still wrestling. Pretty sure the Rock and Roll Express got the biggest pop of all of those announced that I noticed anyways. Austin Idol was honored. The Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant was honored. The Gilbert family was honored. And I think his name is Dave Brown, the announcer. From what I understand, I didn't see Dynamite last week, but I don't think they used anyone other than the announcer, possibly on Dynamite. It would have been nice to see some vignettes mixing some of the legends in with the AEW stars. I would have probably tuned into that, just like I tuned into the Legends part of AEW Dark, and I thought it was cool that they honored the Legends. So good job to AEW on that. New Japan Pro Wrestling announced that they are going to have a show called Lions Break Project 3 at Wrestlecon in Tampa that the Hannibal TV is also going to be at. It's going to have a table there with Billy Jack Haynes. But this Lionsgate 3 New Japan event is going to be Thursday, April 2nd. Already announced is Tanahashi Narita, Carl Fredericks, Alex Coughlin. I believe I also met Carl Fredericks, but Alex Coughlin stands out to me as a guy I met and was impressed by when I did the New Japan training camp back in 2018. Clark Connors has also been announced for that show. I'm not totally sure who that is. Apparently, PWI Insider reported on the weekend that the Saudi Arabia pay-per-view was going to happen February 20th. WWE has apparently changed the show now to the following week, February 27th. To my knowledge, I believe I heard on the Wrestling Observer radio today that there's actually 3 pay-per-views between now and WrestleMania. I could be wrong, but if there is, that is a hell of a lot of pay-per-views. WWE puts out so much content. Krilling876 is, what do I think about Steiner making appearances in the NWA? And he tips me $2. Thank you very much, kind sir. Well, Scott Steiner lives in Atlanta, and they tape in Atlanta. They're trying to operate on a small budget. That's a good use of Scott Steiner. Scott Steiner is a hard worker in my dealings with him. He's local, so they don't have to pay his travel. I haven't seen any of it, but I think it's a good idea for sure. There is a few more. Oh, yeah. Major League Wrestling has signed with ICM Partners, which I guess is a company that helps companies sign with TV outlets and streaming services. So I've never heard of ICM Partners. Apparently they're saying this is a big deal that MLW has signed with them. From what I've seen of MLW, I like it. I also have friends in that company, and I've wrestled people in that company. So I wish MLW nothing but luck. The Ghost retorts, as you guys know, Billy Jack's kid story was debunked years ago by the DEA and FBI. Well, he's probably mentioning this because there were some rappers that did an actually pretty good song about the Billy Jack Haynes Boys on the Tracks story. And I interviewed one of the rappers today. If you want to check that interview out on my channel, the Mighty Casey, I believe his name was. And it's a good rap. If you look it up, the link's in the description. But do I think that the FBI debunked it? Well, I think Billy Jack Haynes would be arrested if they thought he was a real suspect. He's saying that he literally helped put one of the kids on the tracks, maybe both of the kids on the tracks. It's a long story. Basically, some of the facts that are known, I don't know all the details, is there was drug drops in this area of Arkansas. Supposedly some kids found out about it, and they had issues with people interfering with the drug drops. And I guess, according to reports, the kids were killed, put on the tracks, covered with a tarp, and then a train ran them over. The original diagnosis or cause of death was said to be marijuana overdose. However, them going to sleep on the tracks makes very little sense, and covering themselves with a tarp makes very little sense. The person that ran them over with the train said that there was a tarp covering them. Billy Jack Haynes, who I have confirmed this much, he wasn't wrestling for WWE on the night that this happened or the day before or day after. I'm pretty positive about that. They weren't putting on any shows for 3 days around this time for some reason. Was he involved in drug trafficking? I have spoken to wrestlers that say they were aware that Billy Jack Haynes was into those type of crowds, but they had no idea how much or how little involvement he had with it, but he did associate with underworld people. So the two possibilities are he associated with underworld people. He was not wrestling for WWE those nights, so there was no proof he was anywhere else. I would have to do a lot more research into the story, and I will do some more research into the story. But to me, those are the only facts I've found out from the research I've done thus far. And I like the song, but all the stuff about the Clintons, I always liked Bill Clinton as a president, and I'm into UFOs, and I know he's interested in UFOs. So I don't know anything about any conspiracy involving Bill Clinton. And to be honest, I thought it was cool that he got a blowjob when he was president. So, yeah, I'm no expert on that, and I will research it more. That's all I'll tell you. We are going to do another interview with Billy Jack Haynes WrestleMania weekend when he appears for us at Wrestlecon. Warrior Z Toysy with a conspiracy theory here. Vince had Owen killed for damn near breaking Austin's neck and losing the Monday Night Wars. I don't know what Owen Hart had to do with losing the Monday Night Wars. I do know there was a lot of heat between him and Austin. Maybe, you know what? I don't know what Austin's up to, but if I ever do an interview with him, I will be back in the LA area because I am covering that PCW Ultra event March 27th. I doubt he watches my news updates, but I would like to interview you. I'll ask you some interesting questions, but I don't know if you've ever been interviewed by anyone that'll ask you the real questions or if that intimidates you. The Ghost Retour says, I love your Sabu interview. By the way, that's now posted ad-free in full at patreon.com/thehannibaltv. I read Sabu's book to prepare for that interview, and I thought it was a very interesting interview. Some shoot interviews I do because I already watched them, and then when I'm editing them, I often watch them 2 or 3 times. Some of them, I got to admit, take me a while to edit, and some of them get boring. Maybe not the first time I hear the story, but the third time. But I found Sabu's interview a pleasure to edit. And I actually heard that some fans have said that Sabu's match with the Blood Hunter on the PCW Ultra show was the best match of the show, in some fans' opinion. I didn't get to see it. They're going to send it to me. I was doing interviews during the time that match happened, so I couldn't tell you. I do know that Chris Masters versus Killer Cross match was good, and I know the cage match. I did not see the cage match. I was also doing interviews during the cage match where Jacob Fatu did a moonsault off the top of the cage. I heard that was a crazy match. So I'm looking forward to watching the whole show because I was gathering people for interviews. I didn't get to watch the whole show, but the crowd was going nuts. You could next time, and by the way, I'm sorry I didn't bring my handheld mic. The crowd was actually bigger for this PCW event than the last one I was at, and it was louder. So there wasn't really issues last time, but this time I did notice sometimes when the crowd was really popping, it was hard, not perfect audio in the back. So definitely when I return on March 27th, I'm bringing my handheld mic. I liked everyone that I met at PCW Ultra. They have a great crew. It was really nice to see Ricky Banderas, who I had a long feud with that we've since made up from. That feud ended over a decade ago, and I hadn't seen him since that feud. But those were some of my early best matches. Some of those matches I had with Ricky Banderas as I was still fairly young in the business. at that point. And we actually drew very well the matches with Ricky Banderas and I. You could look at the crowds at the Summer Attitude 2005 in Carolina, Puerto Rico. The place was packed. There had to have been at least 3,000 fans or more in the building, and we packed it in Bayamon, many other towns. The wrestling business was still good in Puerto Rico. I hope it makes a comeback. I know IWA is starting to make a pretty good comeback. Someone's asking me, I'm Canadian, why don't I break in David Benoit? I hate training people. I have trained some wrestlers in Puerto Rico. I don't know what happened with them because it was a long time ago. And some wrestlers in Canada I have trained. But I find when you actually train wrestlers, it's so much wear and tear on your own body because you have to take the moves yourself, and these people don't know how to do the moves on you. So, like, you really beat your body up. And I find no one I trained really had the dedication to seriously pursue the wrestling business. So I wasn't very satisfied. Although in some cases, I trained people specifically to draw a crowd in a town, for instance, where they're a local celebrity in the town. So it paid off for those specific shows. But long term, no one that I trained really had the dedication to make it in the wrestling business. But many Great North Wrestling wrestlers have been signed to WWE, including Jinder Mahal. But also for David Benoit, he lives in Alberta. I live in Ottawa, Canada, which if you were to drive without sleeping to get to where David Benoit lives, that's a 3-day drive. So I wish him luck, but there's tons of great trainers in Calgary, including Bruce Hart, who trained me and was good friends with Chris. Lots of questions on here. Sean Scott says, hey, Hannibal, I watched NWA Power today, and oh my God, it really sucks, man. The last thing I watched from NWA Power was one of Melina's matches because I could still tell you I'm a fan of Melina. And I think she's a sweetheart in person, so I did check in on one of her matches. But to watch a whole show, no thank you. I just don't have any interest. Good luck to them. What legends are left for me to interview? Sergio Acosta says lots. And you know what? I've also interviewed boxing legends such as Larry Holmes, Larry Mercer, Evander Holyfield, and George Chuvalo, among others, Jerry Cooney. Ever since I started training in boxing, I've become a big fan of it, and I want to do more boxing interviews as well as more MMA interviews. But there's tons in wrestling I still want to do, and I'm going to be working on those this year. Outback Jack is one guy that I really want to interview. There's so many comments arguing back and forth about Benoit on here. I'm not going to get into it. You know what? Honestly, I don't believe for a second, I'll tell you guys, that he had the brain of an 80-year-old Alzheimer's patient. My grandmother, who I love dearly, suffers from Alzheimer's, and I visit her all the time. And if his brain was as bad as a 80-year-old with dementia, there's no way he could have made the towns. There's no way he would have remembered choreographed matches and so forth. I don't know what happened, but he was taken over the edge by something. One thing I know for sure is Kevin Sullivan had zero absolutely zero to do with it. He was broken up with Nancy for 8 months prior to Chris starting to date Nancy. Kevin didn't care. He liked the angle of it. And I can tell by knowing him that he likes Chris Benoit. He liked Chris Benoit as a wrestler. And he still likes Nancy as a person. He said in my shoot interview with him that Nancy should be in the WWE Hall of Fame. He's not. He wouldn't have done that. I could tell you that. Another $2 tip here from Krilling876. Am I a fan of Chris Wieldman? He's from my town. I'm not a fan of him, but I'm no expert on his accomplishments. Maybe I'll interview him one day. So there's a lot of trolls and weird comments in the comments, but I'll stay out of this Benoit stuff, although I will continue asking people about it because those videos get lots of hits. Oh, and last thing, some people, I get so much hate mail, it's hilarious. I also get positive mail. I even get lots of threatening mail. Some idiot said, for instance, why do you block me? I'm going to keep making fake profile accounts. It's like, that's exactly why you're blocked, because you're insane. Why would you keep making fake profile accounts? If I've blocked certain people for one rude comment and they've asked nicely for me to unblock them, I've unblocked them, but we get thousands of comments a day sometimes. I don't have time to get repeated rude comments from people. But yeah, someone's said, I hate your news, blah, 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 but I love your interviews. Well, here's a simple solution. Don't watch the news clips if you don't like them. But I'm not going to stop doing the news clips because I always follow the wrestling news anyways, and I pay money for my interviews. A lot of money, and there's travel costs and stuff involved to make news clips, which very often actually get sometimes more hits than the shoot interview clips. It doesn't cost me anything. So if you don't like some of my views, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. Steve Colin, I've interviewed Bret Hart. As I tell everyone about Bret Hart, and this is the last question I'm going to answer, you got to tweet to Bret Hart if you want to see me interview him, because he's told his brother, who also wanted to see me interview him and tried to set it up, that he doesn't want to do any more shoot interviews. He's very well off financially. He always gets himself into trouble when he does shoot interviews. So I don't take that personally. Nothing. You know what? I've had a range of opinions on Bret, but overall I like him. So yeah, good night. Have a good one.